It's nearing the end of the 2018-19 NBA season, and we've seen and talked about most of the notable rookies already. These guys have gotten most of the recognition, and it makes sense. They were the top draft picks of the class. So no top 10 picks are going to be in this video. Let's take a look at everyone else and how they're doing. Alright, without further ado, let's begin. Number 8, Miles Bridges. You might have seen more of Miles at the beginning of the season. He was throwing down some crazy, ridiculous dunks, some crazy alley-oops, but as the season progressed, he kinda slowed down and got fewer and fewer minutes. With that being said, he's still a valuable contributor on the Charlotte Hornets, who have been struggling to make the playoffs. He's averaging about 6 to 7 points a game, 3 to 4 rebounds, but his shooting has been wildly inconsistent, throughout the entire season actually. It's normal for rookies, but what Miles is best at is cutting to the rim. He's super athletic and great at finishing at the rim, hitting 65% of his shots there. Overall, the Hornets' wing positions are kinda stacked and loaded. Well, they're stacked as in they have a lot of other players getting minutes there. It's still unclear if he's going to be a core piece of the team moving forward, but he is the only young player on the team with real potential. Number 7, Josh Okogie. Caught up in the mix of a turbulent Timberwolves team, where they started off the season having some drama with Jimmy Butler, and then the whole storyline of Derrick Rose having a resurgence, and then that died down. And now for the rest of the season, the Wolves have returned back to their former selves, with Towns at the center of the offense, and Wiggins looks like he cares even less about playing basketball than ever before. But besides all that, Josh Okogie, the number 20th pick of the draft out of Georgia Tech. He's been a quiet, bright spot, although just like Miles Bridges, he's had his ups and downs. I feel like with Okogie, he either scores like 15 to 20 points or scores nothing and is completely non-existent. For the season, he's averaging about 7 points and 3 rebounds, but he also started for 41 games, taking over the starting shooting guard spot after Jimmy Butler got traded. Defensively, his defensive rating is terrible, but that's mainly because the entire team's defense is terrible. Individually, he looks to be pretty good from the eye test, although he still gets lost on switches and things like that. It's also uncertain that Okogie showed enough to be the future starting shooting guard of the team. But considering that the Wolves moved on from Jimmy, that experiment failed, so now they're back to relying on developing their young players. I can see him staying there for a long time, and he's certainly a hard worker. Number 6, Rodions Kurucs. He sounds like a character from World of Warcraft. Chances are, if you're not a Nets fan, you probably never heard of him. He's their 6'9" starting small forward, and he's been having a great season. As the 40th overall pick of the draft, you don't really expect anything at that position. But Kurucs has well exceeded expectations, and he's the perfect embodiment of the direction the league is heading towards. A versatile wing player who primarily takes most of his shots at the rim or from 3. As of now, he's shooting only like 33 to 34% from 3, but it's steadily improved as the season progressed. In the start of February until now, he's shooting about 40% from 3. Kurucs is also a very good finisher at the rim, hitting 67% of his shots between 0 and 3 feet. He's also one of the few rookies on this list with a positive net rating. When he's on the floor, the Nets are a plus 0.6. It's not a huge plus, but being a plus at all is great for where he got drafted. I think he's a legit part of the franchise and will be a core piece for years to come. And the Nets have recovered very nicely from that disastrous trade a couple years ago. Number 5, Frank Jackson. While most of these rookies I previously mentioned have had relatively the same role for most of the season, Frank Jackson found himself thrown into the starting lineup after Jrue Holiday's injuries. Since the start of February, he's averaged over 11 points a game. He also had a recent 6-game stretch where he was the starting shooting guard and averaged nearly 18 points a game. The issue is, he's not exactly anything else besides a scorer who gets hot or cold depending on the day. Jackson doesn't playmake for his teammates very well, and he's pretty undersized for a shooting guard in general at 6'3". He's not a true combo guard like Jrue Holiday. He's strictly a smaller shooting guard. But as with most rookies this year, he's very good at finishing at the rim despite his size. Obviously, with Jrue coming back eventually, Frank will not be a permanent starter. I'm not sure if he has a future with the Pelicans, but maybe with another team. He certainly will, maybe not a starting guard, but definitely a backup guard. In the future, I can see him filling a similar role to someone like Lou Williams or Jamal Crawford, an instant spark plug off the bench. Number 4, Jalen Brunson. While everyone's focused on Luka Doncic, Jalen Brunson has been phenomenal as of late. As a second-round pick coming to Dallas, he wasn't expected to do really much of anything. The Mavs already had Dennis Smith Jr. at point guard and then JJ Barea as the backup point guard. By the trade deadline though, Smith was gone and Barea got injured. So now, with no other choice, Brunson got forced into the role of starting point guard. And he's answered that call. In a recent 6-game stretch, he averaged 20 points and 5 assists, while shooting 59% from the field and 46% from 3. On March 12th, he even had a career-high 34 points. In the beginning of the season, some fans were questioning if Smith and Doncic could really fit together and play together successfully. But after that trade, and now with Brunson at the point, he's a much better fit. While he's not as talented, nor does he have the raw skill of someone like DSJ, he seems to play a lot better with Luka, while previously Luka and DSJ always had a negative net rating whenever they were on the floor together. This combination of Brunson and Doncic is rather new, but as an off-ball player, Brunson has done well. For those who don't know, he's actually the son of former NBA player Rick Brunson, a journeyman in the 90s and the early to mid-2000s. Jalen has been around basketball his entire life, and that's why when he plays, his teammates always say that he looks like a veteran. According to Devin Harris, he said, "Coming in, he's had a lot of college experience and comes from an NBA family. He stays ready. He knows what he's capable of doing, he knows how to be effective on the floor and knows his strengths. That's the part of his game that everyone undervalues. Jalen is a very smart player. He's always in control and never tries to do too much." Number 3, Kevin Huerter. Everyone's paying attention to Trae Young in Atlanta, but his backcourt running mate, Kevin Huerter, they're a great backcourt duo. Huerter was only the 19th pick, and on the Hawks, he wasn't even supposed to start, yet alone be in the rotation. The Hawks were starting Ken Bazemore for the majority of the season, but Huerter slowly worked his way into the rotation. Actually, the Hawks have ran like a billion different starting lineups, but since December, Huerter has been the starting shooting guard. He can do a little bit of everything, a very versatile player. For the season, he's putting up about 9 points, 3 rebounds, and 3 assists per game, shooting 38% from 3 on nearly 5 attempts per game. Watching them play, Trae and Kevin look like a baby version of Steph and Klay in Golden State. Out of any other duo on the Hawks, Trae and Kevin have played the most minutes on the floor together, with over 1,200 minutes. And looking at the direction of the Hawks and what they're trying to do, he certainly will be a part of their future. Number 2, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Shai is not exactly an unknown, but he did get drafted outside of the top 10. So he fits on my list, and not many people are paying attention to the Clippers anyway. Although his stats are not eye-popping, he's a steady, starting rookie point guard on a playoff team. That's already very impressive. He's not too flashy, but very fluid and consistent, although he did have a month or two there where he was struggling. Defensively, he's a step above most other rookies and with a quick, agile 6'6" frame. It's hard to say if he could develop into a superstar or not, but if he ends up as a player like Mike Conley, that would be great. Shai reminds me a lot of a young Mike Conley. He's also deceptively athletic too, although he doesn't explode to the rim, he plays at his own pace, and it's been working well. According to Doc Rivers, he said that Shai reminds him of a young Rajon Rondo, with his ability to understand NBA plays and reads at a high level. I can see the comparison, although I think shooting-wise, Shai came in with a better jump shot. He's shooting about 45% from mid-range and 37% from 3. Although he doesn't take that many shots, he's still a pretty good mid-range and 3-point shooter. And number 1, Landry Shamet. The guy who Philly basically threw into the Tobias Harris trade and nobody paid attention to him. In Philly, he was already playing really well, coming off the bench as JJ Redick's backup. He plays almost the exact same way too, just like Redick. But after the trade that sent him to Los Angeles, Shamet is now the starting shooting guard in the lineup. He's averaging about 11 to 12 points a game, shooting over 45% from 3, and launching over 6 threes a game. It's funny because the Clippers actually drafted this guy, Jerome Robinson, with the 13th overall pick. Landry Shamet is basically playing the role that they expected Robinson to play. Shamet was drafted 26th overall, but he's playing like a top 10 rookie in the class. As for his role, for the most part, he's just a catch-and-shoot player. Over 95% of his threes are assisted, and 91% of his two-pointers are assisted. It was a pleasant surprise for LA, and Shamet has been a huge reason why they're in the playoffs. The Clippers, even though they're trying to contend in the playoffs, they've still set themselves up for a great future, with a ton of promising young players. And that's all, folks. Those were 8 overlooked NBA rookies who've been having great seasons, but not many people are talking about them. Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and which other rookies do you think deserve a spot on this list? Thank you everyone so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and as always, I'll see you next time. Peace.